now. Okay. All right. Recording has started.
Okay.
Okay. So a little bit more about our upcoming events. So on Saturday, October 23rd, so that's this Saturday, we have the Adaptive Freedom Foundation Paddleboard Day. So if you're able to go out, go ahead and do that. And then following Saturday is the 13th annual Wrigley River Run. Thursday, November 4th is our 5th general meeting. That'll be in person in the room that I am in right now, USU 303, at the same time, 5 o'clock. And then Saturday and Sunday, November 6th and 7th is the Anaheim Health Fair. If you want volunteering opportunities, go ahead and look at our link tree in our Instagram.
And then they should have been sent out in the email as well if you want more information there too.
That's right. Yeah. Look out for that for the emails. Is that it? Is that it for the slides, Vivian?
Yeah, that's it. Just wanted to notify you guys of our upcoming volunteering events in the next general meeting. But now we can open it up to questions for Jeff. Is it okay if I refer to you by Jeff? Or?
Sure. Yeah. Don't call me uncle. Just Jeff.
Sorry,
Nathan would do that.
Yeah, I'm so used to doing that. I'm sorry. I'm so used to
That's fine. No, you're good. Otherwise, I'm gonna talk to you about your dad. So I just tease
fair enough. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah.
so does anyone want to open it up with the first question for him?
Any questions? So anything at all? I could tell you. First off, physical therapy is very exciting. It's like going in like a main road that has different arteries that you could go onto. So you're just not generally a physical therapist by purpose of strengthening, conditioning. A lot of physical therapists off college would like to venture with sports therapy, be like a personal trainer or trainer for like athletes, clubs, organizations, professional athletes for that matter, which is really hard to get into. But if you're really good and you're 6 foot tall, then maybe you will have a career like that. There's like Jeff Cavalier, I don't know if you know that guy. So he's into Major League Baseball and training all these athletes and is really big. He's famous right now. And there's this 2 other physical therapists in YouTube who makes their career making their money, answering questions about physical therapy. And there's 2 of them. I think they call themselves the therapy guys or 2 therapy guys. And they have like 24 million subscribers now, which is really good. So I take that back. I would say 2 million. Jeff Cavalier has about 10 million, I think. So yeah, so that you can. Also, you could go into specialties after you graduate from your doctorate of physical therapy. So when I first started, I went into lymphedema first. I wanted pediatrics, but I didn't finish it. I went to a little bit of neurology for stroke patients and Parkinson's disease. I didn't get the certification for that. But then I just fell in love with doing wound care and then lymphedema. And so I got the certification for it. And there's kinesio taping that assist with wound care and lymphedema as well. So I had that specialty too. So there's other avenues that you could venture onto, like there's Red Cord right now, which is really big in South Korea. I think they're trying to bring it here in the United States. That is where you suspend the patient and then you do your rehab on a patient while suspending on ropes. And the ropes are red. And so thus came the name Red Cord Therapy, which is really slick. And they have it out in LA, I think, for certification a couple of times a year. So that, and if you're into more of education, you could get your PhD for it and you could be a teacher for that matter, or you could be an educator, so after you get your degree in physical therapy, you're just not stuck with just being a physical therapist and doing your daily routine. If you want to truly advance in your career, then there's tons of certifications you could go into. Try one, try it out, do a study, and if you think that that's something that you want to venture in, then get the certification for it, and then you'd be highly sought for, so to speak, if you have a specialty. So
thank you. That's really good.
Sure, you're welcome.
We have one question in the chat. It's, how did you discover home health and what is the typical patient that you treat, is what Mr. Bones trying to say. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew.
Oh, okay. Well, I was working in a skilled nursing facility then, and then I got kind of bored because of the routine stuff. And then there's this other therapist that was working for home health and was employed with the same skilled nursing that I was working in. Ask her about home health and what they do. And I go like, yeah, I really don't want to go into patients' homes because you don't know, which homes you're going into, is because of the society that we live in now is not always safe, I thought. So I told myself that, you know what, if I could get out of the working facility inside a building and just be on my own for a while, let me try home health. And so I did apply for the job. I got accepted, and then the training was good. The company is good. Then I had one or two patients, and another therapist was shadowing me, stuff like that. And then I was on my own, and I kind of fell in love with it. What I mainly love about it is that you would have one-on-one care for your patients inside their home, because all of us, admit it or not, we're all comfortable if we are in our homes. Everything that you need is there. You could be comfortable in your clothes. You don't have to wear special clothes or whatever. You don't have to drive to go out somewhere for your appointment. Whereas a medical professional could come to your house and give you the care that you need. And which I think is, the patients appreciates it that way. It's just not physical therapy that does that. There's also nursing that does it. There's vet aides that would come. There's occupational therapy, speech therapy, and doctors also do house calls now. And so the bulk of patients we see for home health are truly homebound. So the ages could vary. It could be as young as 15, 20, or it could be as old as 90, 92, 85 after total hip, total knee replacement, after motor vehicular accidents for younger people, or some of them would have um, cerebral palsies or palsies for that matter, and the like. Whoever is homebound and the doctor would deem that they would benefit for home health, and they send us out, and we do the rehab in their homes. Oh,
I had a question about.
sure.
Oh, actually, let's do the next question in the chat. Do you need to specialize to graduate from the DPT program? Or is that specialty education? I'll answer this one, Jason. You don't need to specialize to graduate from one. So all that can be
From
afterwards.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to be. It's something that you would venture into after you graduate. Yeah, so you could be a specialist for that matter, so to speak.
And my first question was, how did you kind of fall in love with wound care, and what kind of things do you do like when you're treating patients in terms of the
Oh,
wound care side?
That, well, it's gross, to tell you honestly. All the wounds that we see at home, they're not simple wounds. They're not paper cut wounds, no, nothing like that. Most of the wounds that we see have pre-existing conditions like congestive heart failure, chronic kidney disease, infections like MRSA, Clostridium difficile, C. diff, and I'm seeing now that there's COVID patients that have wounds as well. So that is very challenging. So the why I fell in love with wounds, I really didn't feel that it's filthy. The only reason why I want to do it really is because you are within your scope of practice able to debride the wound. You could clean it with gauzes and stuff like that, but you could also do scissoring and scalpels and stuff like that. And so that in a way would enhance wound healing. It would lessen the suffering of the patient, so to speak, and the frustration of the patient, save a limb for patients who are diabetic. So I kind of did that for 4 people now. Doctors, the patient would go to the doctor, and the doctor said, there's no hope for your wound, for your foot. We have to amputate it. And they go like, oh, okay. And then they would send out home health. They would send me out. Then I would do debridement. Then I would do what I can, I should say, to keep the wound clean, and then educate the patient on how he could help himself with wound healing and stuff. And I was able to salvage 4 foot now, so to speak. So it's kind of cool in a way, but you need to stomach it, because it only is not the appearance of the wound that is gross, but there's also a smell, and there's also that body fluids that oozes out when you do the wound. So you gotta really need to love it, so to speak. I'm just a weird person in the way that I love gross stuff and I try to clean it up and make it better. So yeah, so we're collaboratively with doctors for that matter, because I need to get orders for whatever I do. Like if I want to do scalpels, if I want to do scissors, if I want to do tweezers to clean out the wound, then the doctor would have to okay on that. So It's good. It keep you busy all the time. It's not a routine work of a physical therapist. Like when you're in a hospital, so to speak, people there would evaluate and discharge patients all the time. Like every day, you have physical therapist assistant that would help carry out the orders that you put on it to the patient, like general exercises, ambulation, and stuff like that. All the therapist would have to do to go and to work in the hospital is that they would evaluate patients, they would do a little bit of treatment, and then they will discharge the patient. It's more like paperwork, so to speak. And you have assistants that would carry out the work. Same thing with the outpatient. It almost is the case. They would employ so many physical therapy assistants, and then us, you guys in the future as doctors of physical therapists, most of the bulk that you are going to be doing is evaluations and discharges and justification to the insurance companies why patients would need physical therapy. So, but differently with home health, we open up the case and then we treat the patient and then we discharge the patient. So we see the patient from the very beginning onto the ongoing treatment, and then discharge them. So it's in a way satisfying, because you could see the fruits of your work. You feel good about yourself sometimes. You make help a difference for a person. Yeah.
I have a question, Uncle, but we have one here in the chat first. How many experience hours did you have before applying for graduate school?
During my time, geez, can't remember now. It's 20 years ago, bro. I guess one of your professors could answer that. I think it varies now. I have to ask a few of my friends who just graduated like a few years back on how many hours they would have to put in before applying to grad school. But I could tell you before I went into certification for wound care, they wanted me to have at least 100 contact hours doing the work, so to speak. When I went into lymphedema, they didn't require any hours at all. I think that if you want to go into your PhD, so to speak, after your doctor of physical therapy, they would require you to be at least have been working 4 hours, I think, every day for the past 2 years. And then you could go into your PhD. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the last time I looked into it, they would require that much hours. So just multiply that by working hours of 2,150 times 6 hours. So it's quite a bit. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And we have another one in the chat. What are some similarities and differences working as a physical therapist and home health therapist?
Working as a physical therapist and home health physical therapist. Yeah, so the similarities would always be the paperwork. And the paperwork doesn't change. How you measure range of motion on certain body parts and stuff like that, patient reactions and stuff. They pretty much are the same. The standardized treatments that you're doing is always the same. The standardized tests like the Braden scale, Tenetti, and stuff like that are always going to be within your evaluation. So those are mainly the similarities with that is the paperwork. Similarities with treatment is going to be almost the same. It would vary if you're going to be working at home health versus outpatient. Outpatient has more equipment, whereas doing home health, you come in yourself in whichever you can carry, like maybe a floor bike or something like that, or TheraBands or ankle weights that you're able to put into your rolling bag if you want to do it. A lot of therapists would come in with just a shoulder bag or just a backpack, and everything's there. A home exercise program is there. Mainly what we do for home health is we want to make sure that the patient is safe in their homes, make sure that they can actually stay in their homes without falling, so to speak, or they could go into all the rooms of their house and make sure that they're able to exit their house in emergencies, exit their home to go to the carport for medical transport, or go to their mailbox to get their mail and back in without compromising their safety. So that, in a way, is that your skills as a physical therapist with what you learned in school is what you're going to teach them on how to develop their skills, so to speak, because we forget, when you're in pain, you walk differently. When there's something when you have like the internal organ that's aching or something like that, then you will definitely breathe differently. So that in a way, so you teach them how to breathe, proper breathing techniques, so that they could go from point A to point B, or teach them proper gait, training, positioning of their foot, how to synchronize their stepping strategies with using an assistive device like a cane, a walker, or a crutch or something like that, so they could go from point A to point B without tripping. Because if they would use an assistive device like what I mentioned, if they do it incorrectly, that can be a reason for their falling. So you want to teach them on how to manage obstacles if they have steps at home and stuff like that. So you would teach them how to make use of their assistive device safely. So that mainly is the differences with working home health and then working elsewhere. If you work in schools, you mainly would see children with disabilities or developmental delays. So you look into what they are able to do and you go back into their developmental milestone and then work on their developmental milestone and then progressively work them into advancing their months if you're dealing with pediatrics, or advance them to their age to at least go back and integrate with the society so they won't feel too far back with their skills and stuff like that. That was when I was working with pediatrics. It's kind of sad, seeing those Down syndrome and cerebral palsies and the like, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, or most of the other dystrophies and stuff like that. It's disheartening. But you're there as a physical therapist, you're there as a professional, you know what you're looking at. Your emotions come second. Your intelligence, I should say, or what you've learned in school is what you're going to apply. What you're going to apply to, so to speak. So during your internship, you would see a lot of cases on the fields of physical therapy that you will be getting into. So I'm pretty sure that you'd be going to like outpatients and hospitals and stuff like that, specialty clinics. So it would range from pediatrics, adolescents, school system, and then sports, which everybody loves, and geriatrics and stuff like that. So that way, when during your internship, you would know exactly what kind of physical therapist you're going to become. Or if you are not decided, then you can be just a physical therapist, graduate of physical therapy, get your license and start working. If you don't want to really specialize in anything, nothing wrong with that. But then again, on my end, and I think the reason that one of the reasons that sparked Nathan's attention was that I was, certified with a few stuff and kind of know more than the regular physical therapist, so to speak, because of the bulk of work that I do and the bulk of reading and studying that I do almost, let's say, every week. I read a book. I need to keep at par with what I know, with what the doctors know, because they ask me questions all the time, doctors and patients alike. So there's constant study. But then again, if you feel that you want to be a physical therapist and stay and be happy working in outpatient, orthopedics does not change. The way that the doctors does their surgeries does not change. If there's any advancement, it's going to be in robotics, so to speak. So that's the only difference, really. But then how you rehab a patient and how you educate a patient after their surgeries or after disabilities, almost the same. That's outpatient. That's mainly outpatient. That's mainly skilled nursing, and that's mainly pediatrics. But wounds and lymphedema are very complex because it varies all the time. So it depends on what the patient is doing, depends on their diet, it depends on their environment, and it varies with a lot of stuff. And that's when I don't know, I'm just a very peculiar guy, and that I don't want to settle for something that's kind of stagnant. I just want to keep, studying and stuff like that and doing good for a person. So there.
Awesome. We have another pretty good question. Did you ever
Sure.
consider doing occupational therapy? If so, what made you choose physical therapy instead?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, because a few of my friends, a lot of my friends are occupational therapists, and they deal more with fine movements. When I was younger, when I was about your age, when you guys' age, I was pretty much active. And so I wanted to go into more of the physical therapy side of it, doing gross rehab for patients. And so it didn't really spark my interest going into occupational therapy rather than physical therapy. There's so much similarities with what we do on a patient. Uh, yeah, I just like physical therapy more. There's more avenues that you could go into as a physical therapist. Say, for example, occupational therapy could not do wound care like how I do it. How they would rehab, what you call this, orthopedics. Pretty much they will not be involved with it, not unless there's fine motor skills that the patients is having difficulty with, like writing and stuff like that, or dressing for that matter, and then transferring into your showers and stuff. I just can't see myself like doing that for a patient. I'd rather deal with something that's dynamic and fast, like walking and sprinting and stuff like that, and then going into venturing into other fields and studies of physical therapy. I looked into it, and there's more avenues for physical therapists than occupational therapy. Not to be biased, but there's specialties for the occupational therapy as well, but it's not as broad as physical therapy. So physical therapy just has more arteries, if you want to call it that, that you could venture into and be a specialist on. So yeah, occupational therapy there's nothing wrong with it. Have a lot of friends who are OTs, but I don't like sitting all the time because it almost seems like my friends who are occupational therapists when working in hospitals, outpatients, and nursing homes, they would always have a table in front of them, and they would always do fine motor skills, and they're always in the bathroom, so to speak, teaching the patient how to be independent and putting on their clothes, putting on their socks and stuff. To me, that's kind of, I don't know, boring, if you want to call it that. But yeah, kudos to the occupational therapist that does that. So yeah, so
As
that's
a,
what made me go into PT. Mhm. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, as a home health physical therapist, do you work under a hospital or do you like run your own business? And also, like, how exactly does the pay work?
Okay. I'm employed with St. Joseph Home Health, so that's part of the St. Joseph Hospital, St. Joseph system. You can be at your own. You can have your own business as well as a physical therapist, running your own home health business, but you need to have the backing of a doctor that could supply you with patients. So that means that it's very competitive, is what I meant. So there's bigger, and there's a really big physical therapy agency, which is us, and there's other mom and pop physical therapy businesses that kind of picks up the crumbs, so to speak. Uh, Also, they would have like attachments to doctors, one or two doctors that would supply them patients, but they can't really get the bulk of patients that are being discharged from hospitals and stuff. And the best paying profession, best paying field, if you're a physical therapist, is home health. They do pay better. Well, to give you an idea on how much it is, we bill the insurance company $250 every visit. So regardless of what, regardless if you are there for 15 minutes, you bill the insurance company 250. It all depends on how you are employed with your agency. So if you're part-time, if you're contract and stuff like that, then your pay would vary. But you could look it up. You could look it up at Google, and how much home health physical therapy makes is about $80,000 to $100,000. And then if you Google people who are working in outpatient, it would be from 60 to 80 and stuff. And then school system, it would be about, I think, 60 or $80,000. But home health, we have that leeway, because if you want to really be busy, if you want to make a lot of money doing physical therapy and home health, I'm employed with St. Joseph, like what I said, and then how I get paid is how many patients I see in a day. So my quota is 4, because I have a specialty in lymphedema and wound care. So that 4 patients is my full-time job and my full-time quota, so to speak. If I go over that, if I see 5, 6, 7, or 8 patients, then that's when I rake in more money. So that if you're employed in a hospital, you're going to be paid hourly. So the only the only practice of physical therapy that you could get more money is really home health. So it all depends on how much you want to work, is how much you're going to get paid. Say, for example, if you work in a hospital and you're salaried, or you get paid hourly, it all depends on how many hours you stay in the facility. and that's how much you're going to get paid. But with home health, if you see 8 or 10 patients within an 8-hour period, then you multiply that with, let's say right now, the ongoing rate for physical therapy at home health is 80. So if you see 8 patients for $80 each, so you've gotten like about like what, $640. So, and that 640 could be worked by a therapist working in a skilled nursing for 2.5 days, but you made that in 1 day, so to speak. So something to consider, you know, money wise. So you guys could get your sports cars and stuff.
Thank you so much for answering that. Yeah, that's
Sure.
good to know.
Absolutely. And it's public record. So all the salaries for home health is out there. So it's just the average of how much therapists are making. And so, yeah, you wouldn't be surprised if physical therapist. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can choose how many patients you see a day.
Me, I try to stay within 5 or 6.
Okay.
So that would be considered a day and a half worth of work. You know, I have to because I have a wife and 2 small kids, and I'm the breadwinner, so to speak, of the family. Got mortgage and cars to, you know, loans and stuff like that. So you got to work extra hard, which in a way, you know, not extra hard in a way that it is hard to manage finances. Let's talk about finances with physical therapy because, you know, that's the main bulk of why, not the main bulk really, but it is something that matters is how much you get paid within your profession, right? That's always what matters. How are you going to be happy as a physical therapist doing the job that you do and be compensated for it? So first of all, you have to be really good with your profession. You have to excel in what you do to even make it worthwhile for you to be called a physical therapist. You know, not just a mediocre one. Because you could see that. You could see it everywhere. With any profession, even doctors, you would see people who are just mediocre and get paid the way they do. But then again, you will enjoy your profession more. You enjoy your the job that you do more if your heart is into it, and then your pay would come secondary because it's going to come either way anyway. But it all depends on how much you put your heart into it, your interest into it, and how genuine you are in making a difference to another person. Because our profession would entail not just yourself, but to another person. Every time you work as a physical therapist, you always would deal with a person. So it all depends on how much you want to help that person get better, and if that mainly is what you want to do for as your career doing it every day, then you gotta need to, you know, like it, love it, and you have to excel. You have to excel in what you really do, because in order for you to even get recognized as a physical therapist doing the job, excelling in your field of profession, it has to be coming from a client, a manager, somebody that sees you from the outside doing your job. And that's the rewarding part of it is that when they see you work and they see you work hard, and you're making a difference to a patient's life, and that's when you get recognized. And then the pay comes in second. So the how much work you want to put in is how much you're going to be making. So it all depends on how you want to build your lifestyle. You know, I got friends who drives BMWs and stuff like that, and they would have cycles in their garage. They would have a daily driver, and they would have a weekend car, and they would go on tracks for racing and stuff like that. That's a typical lifestyle of a physical therapist, you know, because you're not going to be limited. You're just not making average, so to speak, compared to the other professions. We can make better money than nurse practitioners or doctor of nursing practice or podiatrists, for that matter. We make so much money more than them, depending again on where you work as a physical therapist, your expertise, because you get paid better if you have if you have specialty, so to speak. So you get something extra out of that. And then, you know, your work is rewarded with your market value, so to speak, monetarily. And then you start building your own wealth and go from there. And Nathan could vouch out for that. I mean, because he saw me. Hey, you Nathan.
Yeah, like
Because
okay.
yeah. I mean, we came in as an immigrant like 10 years ago, you know, and we had nothing. Now, within the 10 years that I'm working as a physical therapist in America, I was able to, you know, purchase pretty much anything that I want to get. And you could just imagine if I worked from 2001 till present in America, then I could have maybe I could have so much more, double my money in the bank, my investments and stuff like that. But everything I have now, I'm pretty much contented with what I have. And I don't think there's anything lacking within the 10 years of working, working hard, that is. I've always been busy. So you'd be very much comfortable with your monetary nest egg, so to speak. If you work hard, save your money, see that money grow, invest it somewhere, buy the car that you want. You're not limited really with your annual income to whatever car you want to get. If you're not married and you're working as a physical therapist for 2 years, so to speak, say you already have paid off your student loans half within that first year, because that's how much money you're going to be making, and then pay off your student loans to say max of 3 years. Work hard, pay off that student loan so you could live your life. And then after that, you could pretty much get whatever you want to get. Get a condo, get a sports car, drive your Porsche to go to work. Nothing wrong with that. That all could happen within a year after you paid off your student loan. So I think what's going to really hold you back would be the loans that your guys are taking, if any of you is doing that. So just be really smart with your money, because money is going to come. It's going to come. It's going to come in. Well, let's say that you guys have a bigger shovel to cover up your hole, your debt, so to speak. Yeah, it all depends on how much you manage it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Uncle. We have
go for it.
another question in the chat.
Sure, go. Yeah.
Are you dealing directly with insurance companies, or is most of that done through the home health company?
Yeah, would be done. There's other personnel that does that for home health. So the only thing you would do is treat a patient, do your evaluation, submit your evaluation, and then give them your plan of care. So your plan of care means how many times you're going to see the patient in the week and for how long. And that will project the billing on how much they're going to be billing the insurance. So they're going to give a heads up to the insurance that they're going to be billing, so to speak. So just for example, I saw a patient today. I want to see her for 4 weeks for 2 times a week. So that would be 8 visits. So they would have a multiplier, then again, $250,000, no, $250 times 8 visits. So that's what they're going to be sending out to the insurance company. And if the insurance company says, okay, yeah, go ahead and bill us that amount, then then I could continue seeing that patient for my plan of care, so to speak, which is 8 visits. Yeah.
Oh, we have another kind of related question. So what
Sure.
city do you work in right now, and which cities or counties are the most lucrative?
Ooh, yeah, sure. Let's start with the lucrative, because I've been to all of them. Well, the beach areas, wherever that. So Huntington, Newport Beach, right along the coast. They're very lucrative down there. I mean, they're not therapists for sure. They're business people. So where do I work in? Orange County. So I'm mainly working around the city of Orange, Placentia, Fullerton, Anaheim Hills, Yorba Linda, that area. La Mirada, La Habra, and I go all the way down to Huntington Beach sometimes to cover for a therapist. Yeah, or Santa Ana, that area as well.
Oh, and are you reimbursed for like gas money and all
Oh,
those
yeah.
things?
Yeah. So on top of how much they pay you for the patients that you see, you also get reimbursed for mileage, because I think that is a law. Like that's a California law. It's 78 cents, I think, per mile. How much you're going to be reimbursed for your travel. So they get medical benefits as well. So, and they also match your 401k or retirement, so to speak, whichever program they have their company signed onto. Then you could get into it, put money in there, and they would have some matching. And then again, you can see your money grow. It's fun. It truly is fun. You love your job, and then you get compensated really well.
I kind of have a question related to all that. Uncle Jeff, do you know anybody who's pulled off being a home health physical therapist and maybe an active military service member at the same time?
No, Nathan, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. No, you know what? No, I should say no. I don't know of any of that.
Okay.
But you know what? Your mom told me that there's like jobs, if you want to get into the military after you are a graduate of doctor of physical therapy, and then you automatically become a second lieutenant, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, you still have to go through officer school. From what I've heard, at least for the Air Force, the minimum you need is the bachelor's degree, so they'll likely take a master's or a doctorate,
Right,
whatever you
right.
got, as long as you went through college.
Sure, sure. Yeah, you
Okay.
could build up your profession that way as well. I mean, you get compensated really good. I looked into it myself. They pay about 120 a year, but then again, you know, working for home health and you work hard and stuff like that, and you see a lot of patients a day, you could easily surpass 120 a year
Hmm.
for real. Yeah.
Great. Did you have any disadvantages or things that you don't like about the home health setting?
To tell you honestly, no. I love every bit of it because you could schedule your patients. If you have a lazy day and you already make your schedule tonight, and just like right now, I should be calling my patients and letting them know what time I'll be coming tomorrow for their treatment. But you could just send out a text, you know, I'm going to be late or something like that, and give them a heads up. The only disadvantage I think doing home health is the bulk of paperwork that you have to do. There's just so much because you know how when you work in an outpatient and there's office people that does the filing for you and does encrypting for you, does the transcription for you and stuff like that. There's nothing like that at home health. So you pretty much do the bulk of the work yourself and make sure you get it done before the day ends or before 9 o'clock the next day because they wanted the documentation so they could go and process the bill, so to speak.
Are
So
you
that's the
paid?
only downside for home health.
Yeah. Are you paid for documentation hours in home health as well?
You know what? Yes, before, but now they give us about an hour to see a patient and then do your documentation at the same time. So you can see the patient for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then the 20-minute would be your documentation, and then the 15 or 20 minutes can be your travel. So that's the expectation in a way, is that they really don't want you to bring home your work. You got to finish your work before you even park your car, so to speak. So you're not like what you call this, grumbling with paperwork that you have to do at night and then submitting it the next day kind of thing. So you can pretty much do your job as a physical therapist, your goals, your physical therapy treatment, I should say, within 20 minutes or 30, and then the rest of it would be for documentation and travel to the next one. Yeah.
I think I might have asked you this the last time I saw you in person, Uncle. But I'll ask it anyway.
Sure.
When the pandemic hit, how differently did you have to deliver your services to other patients, especially if you had to travel to them?
Sure.
Was there a big communication gap between the patient and you when everything was shifted virtually, or were you still able to go out to patients when the pandemic
Oh,
was around?
yeah, good question. We never stopped. We never did.
Okay.
I mean, if there's the profession that really saw the patient that needed help, we'd be the patient. I mean, we would be the person that worked in the hospital. I mean, they go in and out every day. We as home health personnel, we carry out the orders from the hospital to see the patient at home. So we never really stopped. Yeah, we did all their PPEs, put in the correct equipment and stuff like that, and see the patients in their homes. It was nerve-wracking, you know, because you're not in the suit that you see in television. They have their overalls and stuff like that, double N95s and stuff. We didn't have that. All we had was like an N95 and whichever covering they gave you, a face shield for that matter, a hairnet, a disposable gown, a shoe cover. But there's a lot of parts in your scrubs that actually is exposed, and then you hop in your car, so to speak. So yeah, it was kind of hard. It's kind of hard doing that, but thank God, nobody got COVID in our agency. So I should take that back. There's people who got COVID but did not actually die from it. We all survived it, and we're still surviving up till now. So yeah,
Okay. That's good that nobody perished as a result of that.
yeah,
But that's interesting because like you said, there's so many parts of a gown that are exposed. Because like I told
for
you, I work in
sure.
a hospital now too, and I have to wear the same PPE. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
exactly.
for that.
Sure. And you think of it as, even if they give you the PPEs that are proper to see a COVID pneumonia patient, so to speak, I mean, how hard it is to put on it and to gown up, so to speak, suit up, knock on the door, and after you're done with the treatment, then you're gonna, take it all off, and then onto your car, wrap it all up, put it in the bag, which is colored red, and it says biohazard, and then it's either you pick that up yourself or you let your patients dispose of it. If you pick it up and you put it in the trunk of your car and you have another special bin for it, so to speak, and then off you go to the next one. And chances are, if you tell the next patient that you've just been into a house who has COVID, then they would probably won't want you. So that if you are a therapist seeing COVID patients, majority of the bulk of the patients you're seeing are COVID the whole day. And then you bring home COVID too. So yeah, that's the downside of it. But you survived it. So, never had COVID. I've seen about 20 of them, but I never contracted COVID. I don't know why. I mean, thank God, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, there was before even COVID hit, and before even COVID was out there and people were talking about it, we already have seen it. We've already seen it in their homes. I've had patients who are sick as a dog, and not a single doctor knows what's going on with that guy. And then came to know after a month he was diagnosed with COVID, and they go like, "Oh, you had COVID all the while," and we didn't have any PPEs or anything like that. So there's 3 patients that I saw who were like hacking and yakking, and doctor said that give them antibiotics and whatever to treat their coughs and their non-productive cough, and they said it's pneumonia, but it's not. And so what truly is it? And there's not a diagnosis of COVID yet before, but we've been seeing those patients already.
It's
Yeah.
maybe another disadvantage of home health,
Ex-
but
Exactly. Yeah. It can be.
yeah. I was wondering if you would recommend for a new grad physical therapist to jump right into home health.
You know what? No. Home health wouldn't want you either if you don't have a 1-year experience. So you have to be at least an experienced physical therapist to even come into home health. Why? It's because you're going to be on your own. There's not a doctor on site. There's not a nurse on site. Everybody if you call for help, you have to call and you have to wait. If there's an emergency at home, you have to delineate and you have to determine whether it is life-threatening or something that you could resolve in the patient's house. It all depends on your experience, so to speak. So I would say that during your first year as a physical therapist, dive into acute care, hospital setting. So you pretty much see everything that's going on there with the patient. And you carry that over if you want to do outpatient or if you want to do home health. So you gotta already have collaborated well with doctors and other healthcare professionals like nurses, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and how they decide on specific ailments to treat on a patient, and where a physical therapist could come in and help during the acute stage of the disease, so that when they're discharged to home health, then the person or the home health personnel would know exactly what to do because they've seen it while they were working in acute setting, so to speak. So yeah. So here's the progression. So a patient goes to the hospital, patient gets treated, the patient needs help. Patient needs physical therapy, patient needs nursing, patient needs occupational therapy, let's say it's a stroke. The patient needs speech therapy, bath aid, and all that. So they would discharge the patient who had just had stroke into the home. And then you do your rehab to that patient in their home, make them safe, make sure that they could pretty much function within their home and they're safe. And then after that, you refer them over to outpatient. And the outpatient would help them integrate with the community. So they would help them, get in and out of the car faster, easier, help them drive and stuff like that. And then they give them resources for the community so they could at least adopt to the community with their present ailments or disabilities, so to speak. And then after outpatient, the patient is going to be on their own with physician supervision. So really, the next set of healthcare professionals after the acute stay in the hospital is home health. That's us. And then outpatient, which is subacute then.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that home health was kind of like that entity.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of expectations with people who are working with home health. It's either you make it or you break it. I mean, the patient, I mean, it's either the physicians love you or they hate you. Because how insurance works now is that Medicare would give a bulk of money to a specific diagnosis. Let's just go back to stroke. Patient had stroke, and the amount of money that the insurance would give to the hospital for that diagnosis, let's say about $100,000. So that's hospital stay, that's home health, and that's outpatient. Right. So the most money that the patient can spend that bulk of money on is hospital. So after they discharge the patient to the hospital, land at home, and then you as a physical therapist, well, let's say, for example, you misdiagnosed the patient, and then you told the patient to go back to the emergency room. Well, it was unnecessary. Well, that money that was spent having that patient discharged to home and then go back to the emergency room, that's a lot of money. And so that way, you know, the insurance wouldn't want that. There's liaisons that all they look on is the money value that is left with that specific diagnosis of the stroke patient and how much they're able to save. So that's what I meant on whether you're going to make it or break it. Is that, you know, your then again, your skills as a physical therapist and your clinical decision making skills is what's really important working on home health.
Okay, thank you. See, anybody else have any other questions? Nobody? Okay,
Right.
I guess we can, since we're coming to a close on the meeting, I guess I'll put the last question up. Is there any other advice that you could give to us pre-physical therapy students, Uncle, going forward into the profession that you
Sure.
haven't given already?
Work hard, study hard, be focused. Physical therapy is not one of these courses or careers that is a walk in the park. It's very hard. The medical language is totally alienating. You know, you got to learn how to communicate properly, not just with your colleagues, but these doctors. You got to learn how to speak doctor language, so to speak. You got to be smart enough that you could convey whichever you want to tell the doctor in a concrete way, because they don't have the time to listen to you. They don't want to hear your story. So you got to be, you know, you got to work smart. You got to study hard. You got to know your basics. You got to have the heart to learn about physiology and anatomy. You got to have to really learn the basics of normal science, physiology, anatomy, and how they interact together. And so that when you go into pathology, then you know how the normal is disrupted. And so when you as a physical therapist would go in there and rehab the patient, let's say, for example, Parkinson's, then you would know exactly which part of the brain that is damaged. Or if you have a stroke, because there are different types of strokes, then you got to know which part of the brain that you have to rehab on. And if a doctor would have a question, if you want to do a verbal report to the doctor and leave them a voicemail, then at least if you know your background, or if you're really well versed with anatomy then and physiology, and you dive into pathophysiology and report to a doctor in a way that you sound like you know what you're doing, because you gotta really have to. Then you could communicate properly in a medical sense, in a medical language that everybody could understand. You know, and one thing I want to tell you guys is just be humble. You know, I've seen a lot. I've seen majority of physical therapists who got into it, who you know, lifestyles change and then people change. None of my business, right? But then again, you know, you gotta know your roots. You gotta stay on the ground. You know, you're a physical therapist, and that's it. You know, it's either you excel or it's either you become mediocre. It's either you progress or you become stagnant. It all depends on you. You know, then again, you got to stay focused. As a physical therapist, it's not an easy task. You could ask other physical therapists who went through the same phase that we did with education and the challenges that we went through, and they would all tell you that you have to be really focused, and you have to be intentional with your decisions. So you know, try to avoid mistakes, so to speak. But again, that goes into stay focused and keep God first.
All right. Well, thank you again for agreeing to do this, Uncle Jeff.
Sure.
This was very informative, and I think all of the attendees appreciate it as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right.
You guys are welcome.
Hmm.
I can see all the thank yous. Yeah, sure. Yeah, anytime. If you want to set up another something like this, if you want me to call in another clinician to talk about whatever, maybe somebody that graduated in the setting, or maybe somebody that had graduated in Long Beach or Chapman University and stuff like that. If you have specific questions about their program, then yeah, sure. We could do this again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very
Cool.
much.
All right. So,
You guys are welcome
yeah.
anytime.
all right. So, yeah, I think we'll wrap up the meeting.
Okay.
I'll stop the recording now.